Before we get to today's show, I want to ask you this question. What's your favorite place to get wings? Because Chat Sports office located in Dallas, I have tried to find a good wing spot here, and there are none. And when you Google the best wing spots in Dallas, Buffalo Wild Wings is one of the first ones to come up. And no shade at B-Dubs, because I love it, but it cannot be the best wing spot in Dallas. So let me know what your favorite place to get wings is, wherever you are, and we'll just kind of bask in the greatness of wings before we get into today's show. Today's Browns Report is all about wide receiver targets because it is the biggest need for the Cleveland Browns this offseason. You're investing in Baker Mayfield for at least one more year. You might as well give him a couple tools to work with. So we'll look at draft targets, trade options, and free agency, and then we'll wrap up the show with the latest news coming out of Cleveland and some interesting stuff going on. So the first one to look at, draft targets for the Cleveland Browns. There's a couple big names out there in the NFL draft, a couple of names to keep an eye on, so we'll look at all of those draft targets, and we'll rank them 1 through 10. And let's get started with number 1, Garrett Wilson and the rest of the crew here. I've got Wilson as my number 1 draft target. The Browns sitting at the 13th pick. Decent shot at getting him. There's not a huge need for the teams in front of the Browns to get a wide receiver, but it is the NFL draft, so you never know what to expect out of it. Jameson Williams, he was my favorite, and I still want to put him number 1, but he tore his ACL in the final game of the season, the national championship, so it kind of dings him a little bit, but doctors are pretty good at their jobs in 2022. I've got no doubt Williams will make a complete recovery and get back to his old usual self. Drake London, he's a very good player, really big size too. Broke his ankle towards the end of the season past year in November, and so kind of dinged him a little bit, but still, those are numbers you expect to see over a whole course of a season. He did that up until November. Chris Olave, super fast, and Treylon Burks, another big guy, kind of like Drake London, but just gets knocked a tiny bit for speed. Garrett Wilson, though, he's my number 1 guy, and he's nicknamed the Natural, and that's because he does a lot of things very well. Usually when you look at wide receivers in the NFL draft and leading up to it, you identify what their biggest strengths and weaknesses are. This guy's a great red zone target like Mike Evans, or this guy's a great speedy slot receiver, or a deep threat once in a while like a Tyler Lockett. Wilson does it all, essentially. He doesn't have a glaring weakness. He's a very good sized wide receiver, over 6 feet tall. He's super fast, and he's got plenty of pounds on him. And that's why one of his biggest strengths is what he does after he gets the ball in his hands. And that's the direction the NFL is going. If you've kind of noticed, the last couple years, they're not looking at the big guys who can climb up a tree in the red zone and come down with it. They want guys who, when they get the ball in their hands, can run the distance. And that's what Wilson does better than anyone else, arguably. Maybe Olave is a little better, but I still think Wilson has him in that category. The only con for Garrett Wilson is that he doesn't have the greatest route running skills, which, fine, you hire a good wide receiver coach and you teach him how to do that over the summer as a rookie in rookie minicamp, and you check that box. I mean, he's not a pro yet, so I don't have an issue with someone having a con. They're rookies. They're going to have things they need to work on, and that's what hopefully will make them a great pro player. Like I said, though, Jameson Williams, he was my favorite, and I would still love that pick. I think Williams was the best wide receiver in this past class. It's just that ACL injury always has people worried because you want to draft someone who's already had one knee injury before they even step on the field for you. Drake London, another great player as well. Again, got injured last season, so he gets dinged for it a little bit, but I'm expecting him to be a top 15 pick. And maybe if Wilson gets picked before the Browns are on the clock, Drake London is their guy. Who do you want the Browns to draft, though? Let me know what you think in the comment section. This is the pinned comment also on today's video. So if you get hit with the YouTube ad break, scroll on down and give me who you'd like to see suiting up in brown and orange next season. On to 6 through 10 here. These are more round 2 guys. Dotson could easily slip into round 1, but I've got him in round 2 just for the time being. Tolbert, you probably don't know that name, coming out of South Alabama. He's a really good deep threat guy. He led one of the best college football deep threat targets. Pickens, he did not play much. He tore his ACL in spring training camp in 2021, so he only came back down the stretch at the end of the year. David Bell out of Purdue. Look at the Boilermakers putting out back-to-back good wide receivers. That's a first for them. And then John Metchie, he got hurt as well. But I like Metchie got hurt a year ago, but I like these guys. And so if the Browns, for whatever reason, decide not to go with a wide receiver at the 13th pick, those are names I would look at in the second round for Cleveland to take on. And that's why they're kind of labeled as second-round draft targets. And that's why I think the Browns, if for whatever reason don't go wide receiver in the first round, go with one of those guys in the second round. But I would not be opposed to drafting a wide receiver in the first and second round. It's kind of unheard of for a team to go with the same position in back-to-back rounds early in the draft, but the Browns have a huge need at wide receiver, especially if they move on from Jarvis Landry this offseason. I don't trust DPJ being and Anthony Schwartz being wide receiver 1 and 2. And if they don't sign anyone in free agency, which we'll look at in just a second, yeah, I'd have no issue with going back-to-back wide receiver picks. Let's get into free agency targets, though, because it's a good pool out there this year. There are a lot of talented wide receivers that want to get paid this offseason, and the Browns, hopefully, will open up the checkbook and write a big blank check for someone. Before we look at the free agent targets, if you guys love the NFL draft like I do, then this is the channel for you, because we'll have Browns draft coverage throughout the entire offseason with mock drafts, draft targets, Mel Kiper big boards, all that good stuff. So make sure you hit that big red button, subscribe to the channel if you are looking for a place to give you Browns draft coverage all offseason. The free agency, though, pool this year for wide receivers is loaded. And I've got my top 5 guys here and roughly what I think they will garnish in free agency and what I think they're going to be getting signed for. Davante Adams, the biggest name. Everyone's in the sweepstakes. Everyone wants Davante Adams. I bet he goes for about $30 million. That sounds very high, and that's because it is very high. He would become the number 1 highest paid wide receiver, which he deserves to be, and the salary cap is going up a ton this offseason, so that's why he could kind of benefit and piggyback off that. Chris Godwin's number 2. I love Godwin. I'll show you his numbers in a second. Williams, it has surged lately. A former first-round pick and a top one, too. Slow start-ish to his career, but what a time to play your best football right before you need to get paid. Robinson was the second best offseason free agent this year up until this season, and then he kind of fell off this year. I bet he goes about $20 million. Christian Kirk, I fumble around. I'll show you 5 more names in a second, and maybe he should be in the second tier, not the first tier, because he's got Kyler Murray throwing to him. And when he didn't have Kyler Murray throwing him, he kind of had a slow start to his career-ish for being a top pick. But Chris Godwin's my guy. That's who I'd like to see the Cleveland Browns go out and get. You see the progression of what he's done in his career, and he's just gotten better and better and better. And those are numbers for wide receiver, too. He's always been behind Mike Evans. Imagine if he was the only target, the biggest target for a quarterback. Unfortunately, coming off a torn ACL, but kind of like Jameson Williams, I've got no issue with giving him a ton of money and expecting him to make a full recovery. Even if he misses the first game or two, you sign him to a 4-year deal. You won't be thinking about the first couple games. Remember Myles Garrett? He did not get off to a phenomenal start to his career because he didn't get to start early in his career. He got a lot of injuries early on. We moved on from that pretty easily. We'll look at the rest of my free agency list in a moment, but I want to tell you about our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Get in with the promo code Browns125 by going to chatsports.com/bet. Using that promo code Browns125 for a 125% deposit bonus. Maybe put some money on the NFC Championship game. I like this game more than the AFC Championship game from a betting perspective because 7 points is a ton in the AFC Championship game for a Bengals team that actually beat the Chiefs not long ago. But I like the Rams minus 3.5. And our 49ers host right now, give me a bit of a stink eye. But the Rams, I think, are on a bit of a destiny right now to the Super Bowl. Sorry to the Niners, they had a great run, but I think it falls short against LA. Also, the under at 46 sounds hard, but a lot of unders have hit this postseason. So I'm taking Rams minus 3.5, and I guess I'll go on the under as well at 46. The second tier of free agency targets for the Browns, though, Michael Gallup and Jacoby Myers, probably the 2 biggest names on this list right here. Hard to gauge what they'll get. A couple of these guys had good seasons when it mattered most. Cedric Wilson, a younger name, or a lesser name, but kind of came on late for the Cowboys. So 2 Dallas Cowboys wide receivers. Gallup will be an interesting one because he also ended his season on the IR with a torn ACL. So maybe Gallup is able to fortunately for Gallup, get less money and make it easier for the Browns to sign him. But those are the second tier of guys I'm looking at in free agency. The Browns' biggest signing, though, this free agency period has to be a wide receiver. They have to back the truck up and dump a boatload of cash at the feet of someone. I do not want to see the Browns just go out and sign 1 or 2 medium-ish names to 2-year deals or overpay someone for a 3-year contract. No. Go out. You've got money. You're in the top half of the cap space this year for the NFL. You can go out and you can get someone and give them a lot of money. Make it happen, Andrew Berry. Who do you want Cleveland to sign, though? Who would you like to see the Browns go out and sign? You saw 10 names. Maybe I'm missing one. There's lots of free agents out there. Let me know who you'd like to see the Browns sign in free agency down in the comment section below. The third segment of today's show, I guess the third of 4 actually, trade target. I've identified a name the Browns could go after this upcoming offseason in the trade pool, and that's Calvin Ridley. This is a name that's been floated around the last couple weeks. He stepped away from the Atlanta Falcons midway through the season for mental health issues. Those are his 2020 stats. That's the year Calvin Ridley really rose up and became a name to be known, a fantasy football name, and a name that everyone's chasing. And so Ridley will be the biggest trade target for any team in search of a wide receiver this offseason. And I want to see the Browns make an aggressive push. In fact, I put together a bit of a mock trade, and here's what I have it going for. I've got the Browns receiving Calvin Ridley and a 5th-round pick, and the Falcons getting 2 second-round picks, a 2022 and a 2023. I think he probably could go for a late first, but he's not worth the 13th overall pick. And I don't think the Browns want to part ways with the 13th overall pick. So I've got 2 seconds. I think it's a pretty fair trade. I think the Falcons would want to do everything possible to keep Ridley, but if I'm the Browns, yeah, I make a push to go get him. Wrapping up the show, we'll look at the latest Browns news coming out of Cleveland because things are in the woodworks. We'll talk about a big personnel name leaving the Browns, and then Baker Mayfield, he took to social media and is going to be leaving for a second. But a Browns front office personnel person, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, hired as the Minnesota Vikings general manager. Now, why is this news to you? Well, because the Browns actually get something out of this. First off, I just want to get ahead of this. I did not know this person was a year ago, but they're hired, so good for them. Props to them. Shout out to Kwesi. But the Browns get 2 third-round picks as part of the NFL's initiative and push to get more minority hirings. They are awarding teams that have someone leave for a front office role, a high front office role like a GM, and they are rewarded with 2 third-round picks, one being in the 2022 NFL draft and the other one coming in the 2023. So now the Browns have a first, a second, and 2 thirds after this hiring. So shout out to Kwesi, and best of luck and happy trails to you up in Minneapolis. Keep your jackets. It's even colder up there. Wrapping up the show here, Baker Mayfield posted this on Instagram. Was about to go to bed last night, saw this, took a screenshot. Pretty interesting. He said, getting off social media for the foreseeable future. Got to do what's best to focus on me, my family, and loved ones. Appreciate all the support. Time to get right. If it's business or marketing inquiry, contact whoever that person is. Most likely they're kind of marketing agent. But Baker, I think this is interesting because just a couple of days ago he tweeted out, I'm happy for everyone what great football we've seen this postseason. Wish I was playing. Congrats to those teams moving forward. And he got ripped apart in the replies. People were pissed. I think it was childish. People, if he wants to congratulate people, so be it. I think you should read the room a little bit better, but yeah, Baker tweets and Baker Instagram posts, they're going to be silent for the couple weeks or months to come. All right, we'll catch you later here on the Cleveland Browns Report.